with Tel Assur, I'm Cody Weddle in Caracas. The Israeli government announced it will suspend military operations in most of the Gaza Strip for 7 hours to allow for a humanitarian window. The ceasefire will apply everywhere except the area surrounding the southern town of Rafah. A Hamas spokesperson asked the Palestinian people to take extreme caution. Now in its 28th day, the Israeli Operation Protective Edge has killed over 1,700 Palestinians and injured over 9,000. That's according to the Gaza Health Ministry officials. It's on top of over 400,000 Palestinians who have been internally displaced and approximately 3,000 homes that have been destroyed or damaged. Israel called the ceasefire amidst increasing criticisms over its bombing of civilian infrastructure, including 2 UN-ran schools in less than a week. UN Secretary Ban Ki-moon described the attack on Sunday as a moral outrage and a criminal act. She calls the attacks yet another gross violation of international humanitarian law. Diplomats from more than 30 countries will take part in a one-day meeting today in Iran to discuss what some have called genocidal acts by Israel. Attendees will include officials from Palestine, Algeria, Egypt, Senegal, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Malaysia, Indonesia, Bangladesh, India, Colombia, Venezuela, and Cuba, among others. The meeting was announced last week by Iran's foreign minister, who denounced what he called massive humanitarian crimes by the Israeli government.
By the security.
To Latin America now, Colombian President Juan Manuel Santos is reflecting on the accomplishments of his first term in office as he prepares for another 4-year term. Santos touts the increase in employment over the past 4 years. He also says the biggest challenge in his next term will be the continuation of peace talks with the FARC guerrilla group. The group has warned that those talks might collapse if the shellings by the government targeting their leaders do not stop. President Santos will take office for his second term next Thursday. Although Mexican lawmakers continue to discuss the final points of secondary laws to Mexico's energy reform, many supporters already consider the reform passed. While opponents lament the inevitable passage, they say they are dedicated to repealing it in a popular referendum. Could they be successful? Let's go to our correspondent in Mexico, Clayton Kahn.
While legislators make their final vote to pass the energy reform, storekeeper Elena Perez says she no longer can afford her electricity bill. She's convinced the reform will increase her energy costs and says that politicians have ignored her voice.
Well, our ask is for them not to pass the reforms and all, but instead they send in the riot police, put up barricades. They don't listen to us. They don't pay attention to us. What kind of government do we have?
Although reform supporters are celebrating their near legislative victory, a coalition of opposition left parties have collected more than 3 million signatures to hold a national referendum to repeal the law.
We have sufficient signatures to reverse the handout policies of Enrique Peña Nieto. In Mexico City, we're going to exceed our goal. More than 600,000 signatures that will be turned in so that the Supreme Court doesn't have an excuse to say that there is no popular support.
Opposition leaders say the reform's intent to privatize the electrical and petroleum sectors will ultimately undermine decades of substantial social spending.
They use the resources for education, for agriculture, for generating employment, for health, and it contributed 40% of public spending for Mexicans. Now it won't be that way. Now, of practically every barrel of oil produced, only 10% of the revenue will stay in the country, and everything else will go abroad with the multinational corporations.
Supporters say the reform will christen a new economic era for Mexico, but the opposition questions if this era will bring prosperity or greater hardship for the population. Clayton Kahn, Tel Assur, Mexico City.
At least 391 people were killed and 1,900 injured as a result of a 6.3 magnitude in southwest China on Sunday. Chinese state media reports the earthquake hit in the Yunnan province. At least 12,000 homes have been destroyed. The government is deploying thousands of temporary shelters and beds to affected areas. According to broadcaster CCTV, the earthquake is the worst to hit Yunnan in 14 years. A summit A summit between U.S. and African leaders starts today in Washington. Around 50 leaders from Africa are expected to attend. The summit will feature the slogan, "Investing in Our Future." Many analysts see it as an attempt to counter China's growing influence in the region. Washington is expected to announce close to $1 billion in business deals at the three-day event. Sudan and Zimbabwe's head of state were not invited, and the presidents of Liberia and Sierra Leone won't attend due to the severe Ebola outbreak in the region. And more on that growing epidemic, a U.S. health authority says that the organization will send 50 health experts next month to West Africa to help local officials subdue the Ebola outbreak. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention recently issued a travel advisory against non-essential travel to Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone, the three countries hit hardest by the Ebola outbreak. Thomas Frieden, director of the U.S. CDC, calls the outbreak out of control. However, he adds that with the right health measures, it can be stopped. We have plenty more on those stories and others at our website, telesurtv.net/English. For Telesur English, I'm Cody Weddle.